When you get an opportunity, you take it. When you get an opportunity to ride for family and ride for your father, you take it. When you get an opportunity to ride in a Grade 1 at Hollywood Bets Kenilworth, you take it. And when you get an opportunity to come back, you take it. And when you get an opportunity to interview Daniel Muscutt, you take it. Welcome back to Cape Town, Daniel.
Thanks for having me here.
Brilliant. Well, let's get started. Thank you so much for your time here on Taking the Reins. Looking forward to pick your brains for the next while, chat about your laughter times. Obviously, that wonderful experience at the end of January at Hollywood Bets Kenilworth. But first thing I want to get to is Globetrotting something that's a long-term ambition of yours, or try and keep it local and make fleeting visits to places when you can?
No, I very much enjoy travelling. I've been fortunate enough to get opportunities to go to Australia, the Middle East, predominantly Dubai, and then through many different places in Europe. But I think it's something that really improves you as a rider, and when you can get those opportunities to travel, it uplifts you, and it's a break in the sort of. I find it quite energizing. It's a completely different change of scenery to the everyday that you get used to in the UK. So no, very much sprinkle some of that in there.
Well, you can't climb Lion's Head in every country, you know that.
No, for sure, exactly. or have mountains and the beach in tandem is special.
First thing I want to get to is obviously the early days, born in Zimbabwe. What were the early days like? Schooling and background and everything else? I mean, we're all familiar with your father, Peter Muscutt, and we'll get to the racing and riding background in just a moment. But growing up in Zimbabwe, what was that all like?
Yeah, it was. I was still very young when we lived there, so not a whole heap of memories from being there. But yeah, no, it's still very much part of my family's history, and I wouldn't mind going back soon.
Schooling? Where were you schooled?
We left when I was 5 years old, so I did a sort of nursery and things there, and then we were off to Singapore with Dad and Mum, and then landed in England a few years after that. Oh
wow! So where else have you been? So from Zimbabwe, Singapore, UK. I know that your father was obviously based in Australia for a long time. Did you touch base down there, or was it a matter of you getting to the UK well ahead of time?
Yeah, I was in the UK from sort of 2002, and with Mum and my sister, and but always wherever Dad was in the world, as many stops, would always go out and visit. So I got to see plenty of the globe that way.
Was racing and riding always on the cards? Did it take you a long time to sort of think racing is where I want to go, or was it day one following in your father's footsteps? Obviously, him, coming through or going through the ringer the way that he has, and now establishing a powerful yard here in South Africa. Did it take you a while for the bug to bite with racing?
Not really. Pretty much there from as soon as I can remember, or as far back as I can remember. Not just with Dad, with my grandfather and my late uncle. It was always sort of in my blood, so to speak. So, and once we were set up in the UK, always had ponies. Mum was really good in that sense. She sort of put a lot of the hard yards in with my equine education, so to speak. Pony club, hunting, show jumping, eventing. She was probably sick of throwing me and the pony in the trailer at all times of the day during the weekends and stuff. So no, it was pretty full on, rounded sort of. But I was always going to come back to racing in some form. It would just depend on how big I got.
I suppose that type of backing and support probably breeds success. Obviously, here in South Africa, the academy is the way that jockeys go through the ranks, learn from there. In the UK, it's slightly different. So what route did you take to get onto the circuit?
Yeah, it's very different to the UK. Sort of, you're based with a trainer. You sort of, when you leave school, there's opportunities, or everybody who goes to work in racing, not necessarily to be a jockey, has to do a 9-week course at the British Racing School, which is in Newmarket. They've got some very good facilities, and sort of everybody goes through that, and then you're based with a trainer, working in the yard, and then they're the ones that put you forward for your licensing course, which takes about a week to 2 weeks, and then you're obviously back to your main stable and doing all the odd jobs, and you start from the bottom and work your way up.
Who was that trainer that you started with?
I started with Andrew Boulding, who's pretty prolific with both him and his father have had some really good apprentices through their hands, and it was a really good place to start.
With such a wide cross section of jockeys based in the UK, how hard was it to break through? And in your opinion, how many jockeys do you think get lost in the system just because they didn't get that opportunity? I mean, there's got to be a lot of luck, there's got to be a lot of ability, there's got to be a lot of hard work on your side. How difficult was it to make that jump and become established?
I was quite a slow burner through my apprenticeship, which didn't do me any harm. Like you said, a lot of hard days, but it keeps you level, puts your feet on the ground. You know where you are. I'm tried to be as level a person as possible anyway. So it was one of them. It's not easy in England. There's not just the riding's the easy part. It's the logistics of the travelling, and but in terms of getting your opportunity, it's if you're doing the right things for the right people. Obviously, you need to find some good horses to ride, but hopefully they all slot into place when they're supposed to.
I want to get to the logistics and the travel in just a moment, because that's very intriguing, especially from a South African perspective when guys get on a plane, but we'll get there in just a moment. Over the last few years on Met Day, Frankie Dettori's come out and ridden on Met Day, ridden the Met as well. He won the Derby on Edict to Nantes. Ryan Moore obviously ran second on Rainbow Bridge in the Met. But just to expand on that, what's it like sharing the jockey room with some of those big names, those guys that everyone sort of wants to rub shoulders with? Is there any sort of starstruckness in your eyes, or is that all worn off? What's it like being in the jockey room with those guys that have been there, done that, ridden all the big race winners that are so sought after? Is it sort of, got to pinch yourself?
Not really, and I don't think they'd expect you to, and I wouldn't feel like that would be the right way to be competing against them. You're on a level playing field at the end of the day, but sort of the whole way through my apprenticeship, all those big names were riding, or in the weighing room most days. Some of them more so just at the bigger meetings, and if I was lucky enough to pick up a ride at some of the nicer meetings, then you come across them. But I very much feel that you improve as a rider when you are seeing how Ryan Moore conducts himself. He's probably the blueprint. But there's William Buick, James Doyle. They set the bar very high, and you're obviously trying to compete with them, and that pulls you forward.
How tough are they as competitors? Are they seriously driven guys? I mean, we all know Frankie. He's got that persona of being the showman, Mr. Showbiz, and Ryan Moore obviously puts on that very, very steady determination face. But overall, to compete with those guys between the rails on the racetrack, how much has that brought you on as a jockey over the years?
Massively so. They're all very different personalities, but they just by taking notice of what they do, they're very clean riders and very effective, very, very good tactically, all of them, which is something that I've worked on really hard. And you see the way that the physical shape that they get themselves in to compete all around the world, and that's what you have to do to be catching at their coattails.
I'm glad you brought up the tactical element of UK racing. How different and how unique are these different tracks? For example, you'll probably get the odd track that's pretty straightforward to ride, and you get to a place like Epsom, where you got to have your thinking cap on for the duration of the race, where plan A, B, C, D, E, you might not have enough plans when you get there. How important is having a whole, open book of plays, to use an NFL expression, is it in the UK, and how much do you need to adapt? And have you ridden all the racetracks in the UK? I mean, I've only been to Musselburgh, and from a commentating perspective, I found that challenging just because of how different it is.
For sure, yeah. There's obviously it's an embarrassment of riches how many race courses we have in such a small country, but obviously with the volume of racing that's on, especially during the summer, and up until 2 years ago, we were doing 2 meetings in a day, sort of 3-4 days a week. So you quickly get accustomed to all the quirks of the different tracks. But it's I sort of started there, so it's I don't know any different kind of thing. But certainly getting to know biases and favours and just riding undulating, twisty, turny tracks does mean that you have to be alert to what's going on around you, and yeah.
What's the trickiest track to ride in the UK?
They all have their pitfalls. It's certainly very difficult to ride winners at Ascot, but that's half the battle, is getting on the right horses.
Let's chat a little bit about Shining Blue at York, because obviously doing a little bit of homework before this discussion, Shining Blue was one name that really lit up winning a race at York on the Knavesmire. I wouldn't say that really lifted you up a number of levels, but that must have been a great moment to be able to get on a well-established horse at the right type of race meeting. What are your recollections of that?
For sure, yeah. It was a ride I picked up, and I hadn't had too many rides for Godolphin and Said bin Saror, especially. And yeah, he'd got classy back form, but had his own way of doing things. But no, I think I was just in the right place at the right time to pick up the ride, and unfortunately it won.
Now, double superlative wasn't your first Grade 1 win. That was at St. Cloud on a horse called Dubai Mile. It was a couple of years ago. How great was it to get that first Grade 1? Because you get many great jockeys, many great trainers, many great horses who don't win a big one. To break the ice in France, what was that like?
To be honest with you, probably the first emotion I felt was probably relief. No, it was really, really huge day, and sort of special because the horse had been never really given the recognition he'd probably deserved. Again, he was a horse I picked up a ride on in a maiden on a Sunday, quiet card, and then managed to stay on him, and his owner Ahmed El Sheikh was really supportive to keep me on the horse, and obviously Charlie and Mark Johnson are a huge stable in the UK, and no, it was a big day.
Where does your biggest support come from now in the UK?
I'm very fortunate at the moment. I've got sort of 4 or 5 decent-sized stables in Newmarket, but sort of between James Ferguson, James Fanshawe, Kevin Philippart Defoy, and George Scott, they're good people to work with and work for. Nice number of horses and a decent band of owners. So yeah, I'm very happy.
So during the summer months, we fawn over the UK festivals that obviously, we get the Ebor Festival, Royal Ascot, Glorious, Goodwood, various others. Cheltenham, obviously, over the jumps is something that we all look forward to in March. What are those festivals like? Is there anything different in the preparation in your life leading into those festivals? Are they everything that they look? Are they as recommended as what many others tell me? I mean, are they just that special that you want to be part of it?
They're special because the calibre of horse you're on. They're hard meetings to ride winners at, because like all those jockeys you mentioned earlier are all there, and obviously the race, especially Ascot, with in the handicaps as well, this sort of 28-30 runners, and some of those heritage handicaps, and they're all sort of just the drop below pattern class horses. Some of them do probably mix it with pattern class just as well, but they're a bit kind of potluck lottery. So yeah, it's hard from a jockey's perspective to do well and ride winners at those meetings, but it's the place you want to be when they are on. You want to be there.
Is Royal Ascot the pinnacle though?
I'm yet to ride a winner at Royal Ascot. That's definitely very high on the bucket list. I came very close twice the year before last, so hopefully we'll be able to write that soon.
We'll touch wood, that'll come to fruition sooner rather than later. Maybe the experience in Cape Town can get you over the line. Now, travel in the UK for a jockey has got to be thankless. I just think of the South African jockeys that I've travelled with. Getting on an aeroplane is one thing, but to do it the way that UK jockeys do is a completely different ball game. What does a normal week look like for Daniel Muscutt when you really are at the ground? How many race meetings would you ride? How far would you travel? What's that like mentally, physically? Where does it end?
It doesn't seem to end. It's one of those things. That's how I started. So again, very accustomed to it. It's not easy in terms of you have to be pretty organised of where you're going to be. My agent does a good job, but no one week is the same. Sometimes it feels like you're doing laps of the country, but it's just one of those things.
So what would a normal week look like? Monday to Sunday. How far would you travel? What would be the furthest distance that you, on average, travel?
Based in Newmarket, considering that's the HQ of British racing, there isn't actually that many courses within less than an hour. So I think there's probably 4 tracks. But if you're going south, you've got your Ascots and your Sandowns and those sorts of things. Those would be sort of 2 hours from Newmarket really, or just under. But so you're pretty much set for a 4-hour commute there and between there and back most days. If you're at Newmarket on the weekend, it's a blessing. Yeah. You're home for dinner time, but the rest of the time it's a lot of miles in the car and a lot of time away from home.
And how far do you have to venture out when you really need to? I mean, is up north, Newcastle, places like that, is that ever a regular appearance for you, and how long does that take you?
Yeah, Newcastle would be, you wouldn't get any change out of 4 hours just to get up there. But
that's one way.
One way, and it's usually night racing. But like you, if your trainers want you to go or have entries up there, it's not a case of trying to dodge. You just have to pull your socks up and go. When you want to succeed, you've got to do the hard yards, and it's one of those things you kick on.
And then back to the ground first thing in the morning at track work.
Yeah.
So sleep is of the essence.
Not a great sleeper anyway. So.
Oh, you're lucky. You're lucky. People like me, I'll never be able to do it. Just looking at you, obviously, posing for a photo after the Met. You're quite tall for a jockey. Are there any prejudices that are attached to that?
Probably just the scales. No, it takes a bit of management, but I don't feel like it's too much of a hindrance. Sometimes on tricky horses, I think it actually helps a little bit. And again, big, strong colts that need pulling together. If you've got a bit more leg on them, I always feel like sometimes that helps. It doesn't seem to have helped me up too much.
Tell us about family time, because the Sporting Post dropped an article before you came out here for the Met about a newborn and about your other half based in the UK. Does she understand the rigours of racing, the travel that you got to put together? Is she from a racing background?
Yeah, she's my wife Claire's worked in racing. She was...
Thankfully, so she understands? She understands.
I think it would be very difficult to be married to a jockey in the UK that didn't have some sort of grasp on what's required. It's a big restriction on the time you're at home, which is tough. But she's super supportive.
Tell us a little bit about the challenges that you faced through being a jockey, injuries or setbacks that you might have had, and how you overcame them mentally and also physically.
Yeah, so probably one of the managing my weight is probably something that I've got better at the longer I've ridden, and that's probably the first sort of hurdle that I have to get over most days. But I'm thankful that I'm grateful that it's my weight is pretty level, so I can operate, pick up plenty of opportunities. But I enjoy keeping fit, so it's I tie the two in together, which helps for the motivation. But and then sort of in terms of setbacks and stuff, touch wood, I've been had a fairly clean run, minus breaking my neck in 2018.
Yeah.
But it's part and parcel of the game. You just have to work through it and make the most of the time while you're off.
Did you find that you were forgotten after that setback? Was it difficult to sort of come back, use the racing expression, get back onto the horse?
Thankfully not. The trainers I was riding for were very supportive, and there's no good time to be injured, but it came at arguably probably the most convenient time, if there is going to be one. It was sort of the end of the turf was just finishing, so it was just to aware the racing, and so I didn't miss out on anything too important, and I could afford myself the time to get back properly. I wasn't having to really rush and push the time constraints, and it seemed to just trickled along for a few weeks, but that can also happen anyway that time of year when I was back in sort of middle of January. So thankfully when everyone else got busy, it picked up in tandem.
Now on to more brighter things. Hollywood Bet sponsor you. They obviously have a massive brand behind racing here. The support that they've given is unwavering. They also sponsor Peter Muscutt Racing, so it's easy to put the pieces of the puzzle together. How big have they been in supporting you, uplifting you, and attaching their brand to Daniel Muscutt?
Yeah, it was really nice to get that association with them. Like you said, they've put in a huge amount of support into racing here, all across all of South Africa, and also many other sports and philanthropy projects, which is, I find that quite inspiring anyway. And they're really proactive with their media, and they're a great company to be associated with, and Devon and Owen and the family are just genuinely good, down to earth people, and who obviously enjoy their racing, and it's nice to be associated with people like that.
I've known them my whole life, so I know exactly what you're talking about with the background and philanthropy and the way that they've basically changed the game. But just in terms of their appeal and their footprint now internationally, you see them with Brentford, you see them at the races, owning S02 and various other accomplished jumpers with Mullins Etc. Is their brand getting bigger and bigger in the UK, which is obviously what they want, but more apparent, and how much do you think that your sponsorship has to do with that?
No, they're really enthusiastic about all sport, and that's something that I can sort of relate to. So, and obviously it was really exciting for them to have that Grade 1 winner in Ireland. Hopefully he'll make it over for Cheltenham, and they can have a big runner there. And they've got a couple of horses in share with the Keys Wetters in training, like S02's, and hopefully they can start to branch out more.
Yeah, I'm sure they will, knowing their expansion plans. Now, let's talk about the 2024 World Sports Betting Cape Town Met, double superlative. How did that all come around?
Yeah, quite last minute, if anything, but everything in racing is last minute most of the time. My father had a few horses penciled in to run. Asked if I could I commit to come out, and thankfully I could, and put in a call to Justin, and thankfully him and his owners were really happy to support me.
Take us through the race. How did it all work out for you? The right breaks and running, obviously Rascallion under Bernard Verheer went off to the front. How did it all materialise, and take us through the 2,000 metres if you can?
Yeah, couldn't have gone any smoother really, but any winning jockey will tell you that. I did a lot of homework, went through the races with Dad, had some quite in-depth chats with Justin the day before. I'd obviously been to the track and had a look and refreshed my memory from when I was down here quite a few years ago. And yeah, just found his spot, found the right ones to follow, and when the pace sort of lifted just before the turn in, and Michael Roberts' horse came round my outside, that gave me something to peel off and follow into the race. I was looking for the best one around me to track through, and he dragged me right into the guts of the pack, sort of halfway up the straight, and the horse did the rest. It wasn't a case of I didn't do anything magical. He was a good horse, well prepared on the day, yeah, no, the rest is history.
Don't sell yourself short. You did something that Ryan Moore couldn't do. What do you think of riding at Hollywood Bets Kenilworth? How quirky is that? I mean, can't really compare it to a place like Chester that's so tight turning, but does Hollywood Bets Kenilworth also have its quirks? Do you have to think a little bit when you're there?
For sure, all race courses you have to be sort of on the ball to what can happen there, and obviously I've watched plenty of racing from Kenilworth, and then and had a bit of experience riding down here a long time ago. It feels like a long time ago now, but so that all stood in good stead, and I walked the track with Justin the day before, and we went through a few scenarios that could happen, might happen, hopefully wouldn't happen, and that just sort of made everything crystal clear. Just meant that I could get to the races and relax and sort of know what to expect. But it's a beautiful track to ride around. Big long sweeping turn, long straight, and obviously all the upgrades they've made to the sort of the public area and the grandstand and everywhere around. That was a really nice surprise to see as well. But in terms of riding around there, the biggest thing is probably when the wind blows, you've got to have your wits about you. Yeah, I was having had chats with Justin, and Dad was fully expecting or aware that they could disappear off to the stand side, and yeah, it wasn't one of those things that caught me off guard. So I could allow the horse to just keep in his rhythm. I didn't have to suddenly think, oh, what am I going to do? I knew what I was going to do.
I'm sure you remember double superlative sire quite well, twice over, and he's subsequently been retired to stud. What type of horse is he?
Beautiful horse. I can absolutely see why they persevered through all the hardship with him, with his injuries and setbacks. Yeah, I went to sit on him the Thursday morning before the Met, and was really impressed by him. And Justin and Nick were really positive on him, and yeah, he delivered. He's a smashing horse, and I hope he can do. I'm not sure where he is going to stand, but I hope he can sire the next generation of champions.
That seems to be the biggest mystery, one of the biggest mysteries in racing at the moment, where he's going to go. But I'm sure when the decision's made, we'll all know about it. Now, just 2024's just started with 2 months in. What are your targets, barring a Royal Ascot win? What are your targets for the rest of the year?
First port of call is to get to 50 winners, then get the 100 up. That would be the third. If I can manage that, would be the third year in the row that I've done that. So those are pretty much the benchmark. targets and just keep knocking them off as we get through the year.
Well, Daniel, you have a lot of friends and a lot of fans here in South Africa, and to have you at the World Sports Betting Cape Town Met was a treat. To have you again a month later is an absolute treat. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you for gracing us with your presence twice during the Cape summer, and hopefully we'll see a lot more of you.
For sure. Thank you very much. Delighted to come back.
Brilliant. So that's another edition of Taking the Reins. Big thanks to Daniel Muscutt for stopping by and telling us some stories about his life. Maybe we can regather in 12 months from now and chat a little bit more. Who knows? Wherever the wind takes us, we'll certainly be there to share some stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe onto our Cape Racing channel. We really appreciate it. Make some suggestions. Tell us who you would like next on Taking the Reins, and we'll reach out to that person and maybe deliver some more pearls of wisdom. But for now, from all of us, thank you very much for watching, and we'll chat to you soon. Goodbye.